Hello dear World of Warcraft friends, welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today we're talking about a development on the PTR that could make gearing in the second season of World of Warcraft Midnight much more annoying. Right now, you need a lot more crests again to upgrade each item. If you remember the Midnight Beta, Blizzard had already introduced this change back then, but after player criticism, they decided against it. And now, all of a sudden, it's live on the PTR. We'll take a look at what this is all about in this video. And to be honest, I hope there will be a lot of feedback from players so that Blizzard doesn't implement this. Because in my opinion, they could ruin the actually pretty good gearing from Season 1 with this and really limit my motivation for alts and so on. But alright, let's take a look at it. Leave a like, subscribe if you want to support me, if you don't want to miss any news. And with that, let's get started. It's important to say this beforehand. It's currently not known whether Blizzard made this change intentionally or if it's a bug, so that option is still on the table. We're not going to get completely worked up about it here. I just want to point out that, in my opinion, this would be a pretty big step backwards and would make the game a lot more grindy. So, let's take a look at it. By now, every item upgrade costs 20 crests. So, no matter if you're using Adventurer, Veteran, Champion, Hero, or Myth crests, at level 1 it costs 20 crests to upgrade, at level 6 it's 620, and so on and so forth. That applies across the board and is pretty easy to remember. That means to upgrade an item directly from level 1 to level 6, you need 100 crests. If the change goes through on the PTR, this number will be increased by a hefty 50% for every slot. If you assume now, let's say if you're not carrying an offhand or a second weapon, then we're at a total of 50 crest items. That times 50 would mean that you would have to farm 750 more crests than before. And that's a pretty hefty number. Here's the thing. So the original idea was that the crest costs would go up with each level. So going from level 1 to 2 costs 10 crests. So that's for Adventurer, Veteran, Champion, Hero, and Mythos. Then from level 2 to 3, it's 20, then 30, then 40, then 50. That means instead of 100 crests like now, you'll have to spend 150 crests per item to fully upgrade one. And to be honest with you, I would find this change very unfortunate. I think Blizzard wants to make Raid Gear 2 generally more rewarding. We can see that here as well. Mythic items from the vault, meaning Mythic Plus items, can be pushed to a maximum item level of 328. Bosses or final bosses in a raid and very rare items drop up to Mythic level 9 out of 6. So that's simply 9 item levels higher than what Mythic Plus players could get. And here's where the real issue lies. Naxxus. With these changes, you would now seriously disadvantage people who don't play raids again. Honestly, in this season, it already felt like raids weren't really worth it, except maybe for a few trinkets. I can understand that Blizzard wants to address that, but even if you just run Heroic Raid, you get Myth Track items in the vault. Raid bosses drop Mythic 6 out of 6, or also Heroic 6 out of 6. That means anyone who goes into the raid and gets these upgrades right away probably saves themselves hundreds of crests compared to other players. And I really have to say, yes, I've played Mythic Raid myself for a long time. It's the hardest content in the game, and that should be rewarded in some way, especially since you need 20 people for it, right? And so on. But for me, with the changes to the vault, it's actually already good. So, for example, hero bosses will drop Mythic 1 out of 6 loot in the future. The final bosses will drop Mythic 9 out of 6, that's already fine. If you make these changes now, it means that if they don't change the caps, you won't even be able to fully upgrade an item within a week. Yeah. So you have your 100 points, and basically the last tier isn't available to you, even though it gives you the same item level as the previous tiers. And at the same time, that would also mean you have to think more about how you spend your crests. Just as an example, you're still limited to 100 crests, and you've gotten your hero 4 out of 6 items from Mythic Plus here. Now, of course, you could say, okay, I want to upgrade them further, but to bring one of them to hero 6 out of 6, you would need 90 crests. But it doesn't make sense to spend them, because in your vault you could theoretically get a mythic item or get one from somewhere else that has item level 315, and then upgrading the hero item would have been for nothing. So for me personally, it would of course make the game grindier. 50 more crests, that's quite a number. At the same time, yes, it actually leads to you being hesitant to upgrade your items at first because it could be wasted, even more than now, since you might get a higher item level somewhere else. And of course, it also means that you have to farm a lot more on your alts. I really like this season that the barrier for alts was very low. Just jump in, log in, get started, start playing. I have to say though, if you've already farmed all your crests on one character, I don't really feel like doing that on other characters as well. And if I think about the fact that I'd have to farm 50 more crests on every character, you just do it because you have to. You had to. But if that comes up there as well, that would be the point for me where I'd say, poof, honestly, I don't really feel like twinking anymore. Like I said, I understand Blizzard's approach that they want to make raids a bit more important again and strengthen them. But on the other hand, and that was also the feedback from you guys, that many of you really enjoyed gearing this season. And I'm afraid that Blizzard is going to undo that and make the game feel even more like work than it already does. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Of course, there's a chance that it was just a mistake, but let's hope that there's some player feedback about it. Right now, I've already seen that the feedback isn't very positive, so maybe Blizzard will reconsider. With that said, thanks a lot for watching, see you in the next video, and take care.